Kia ora Level 2 PE whānau. So in this resource we'll be looking at types of practice, as you can see on the screen, as well as skill learning. The Koronga Ako are for you to be able to apply both in terms of skill learning, whole skill learning and whole part learning. So part learning when we break up a skill into its parts, whole learning when we learn a skill as its whole. You're also to look at explaining and applying the following types of practice. So you have massed, distributed, fixed, or drilled, as well as problem solving. So before we start learning about our skill acquisition, we must first recognize that skills must be learned. That is the ability to carry out a complete action from beginning to finish, e.g. hitting a tennis ball with a forehand, or a layup in basketball, or even just the ability to run. Now, as stated in the Koronga Ako, there are two ways to learn a skill. The first being whole learning. Now, this is where a skill is taught in its entirety. Now, this is good for continuous skills, e.g. sprinting, running, rowing, basically our cardiovascular sports. It also allows the skill to be learnt as a whole and gives the learner the experience and how the skill actually feels. So by that I mean how the skill should feel as it's carried out continuously rather than broken up. It's used to identify faults as well an overall skill carry out. On the other side of the coin we have part learning. This is good for complex skills. It allows the skill to be broken up into chunks, making learning more achievable. It's also fantastic to be used to correct faults in technique. Now this can be used on any and all skills, as well as the ones discussed before, i.e. specific exercises in rowing are able to be utilized to correct different sequences of the rowing stroke or recovery. Now that we've learned our skill, we need to learn to practice it so that we can improve it. So it also needs to be reinforced so that we can call upon it even in states of great fatigue. In order to do this, we need to move it into associative and autonomous stages. Associative, meaning the skill can be effectively utilized in the majority of situations. Autonomous, meaning that it's automatically, so done without even thinking, used successfully as well the majority of the time. So how do we move to our autonomous stage, or even our associative? Well, by using different types of practice to reinforce or practice the skill. So in order to develop these skills, we can use massed, distributed, fixed, otherwise known as drilled, and even problem solving. Now I'm sure many of you have already experienced massed practice. Now this is practicing a skill without a break, where a skill is continuously repeated. So there are advantages for it. It's great for simple skills. Also very good for when a skill is first learnt, allows the skill to be reinforced via repetition, and good for skills with low energy demands. Now the trouble with this is, I'm sure you've guessed, with repetition comes boredom. Also requires a lot of concentration and motivation, which as you continue to do something for an extended period of time can cause fatigue, mental frustration, and even injury, especially if there's an area of your skill which you're trying to correct, which leads to an injury. Another form of practice is distributed practice. Now this takes place over a long period of time, i.e. a long training session, potentially 3 hours or more, depending on the skill. Now it's trained for a set period of time within that training allocation, followed by a period of rest of either equal or greater time. This method is utilized for difficult, dangerous, or fatiguing skills. So as you can see in the picture, pole vaulting is a prime example, as when you're fatigued, the area or margin for error increases greatly. Therefore, it's important to reinforce our focus, ensure we're rested mentally and physically before you take another attempt at a higher standard of pole. Likewise with Olympic lifting, handling heavy weights overhead, very dangerous if you are not rested both mentally and physically. Our next type of practice is one I'm sure you're all familiar with. Many coaches absolutely love drills, and this brings us to fixed practice, otherwise known as the dreaded drill practice. Now, it involves repeatedly practicing a whole skill in order to strengthen the motor program. That is the program of your body moving in a coordinated fashion to complete the skill, i.e., simply dribbling around cones reinforces your ability to dribble a basketball or a football, depending on the sport. Now, this type of practice is best with discrete and closed skills. So, skills in which basically require a lot of concentration and have a beginning and end point. Examples of this are archery, shooting in netball, conversions in rugby, as well as dribbling, as we can see in the examples. Our final one is problem solving. Now, this is used often by experienced players as well as coaches to find solutions to problems through investigation, experience, or discovery. Now, it might be looking at footage of other teams and working out a way or strategy to counter what they're doing, or even developing plays during training session. Now, it allows experienced players, again, I emphasize experience because they have the knowledge, the in-game experience to engage with, to use, to solve problems. It's best for open skills. Also makes the learner accountable because they have to come up with the solution to the problem, and it relies heavily on questioning. So again, those examples, plays in football, moves or layups in basketball, basically any plays or counter plays that you see in many sports utilize problem solving. Thank you very much for your time, team. Hope you enjoyed this session. Ka kite anō.